I told our friends, these powerful friends of ours, I've even said it publicly, when it comes to defending this country that has suffered for so long and nobody came to help, I don't need permission from anybody to do what we have to do to protect ourselves. I will say it in broad daylight. I have said it to those who matter in this problem.
Good evening, Africa. Good evening to our viewers across the globe. Tonight, we begin with a story that is as bold as it is necessary. A story that is shaking boardrooms, presidential villas, and diplomatic circles alike. A statement that cuts through the noise, straight from the mouth of one of Africa's most disciplined, respected, and unfiltered voices, Rwanda's President Paul Kagame. In a moment of piercing honesty, Kagame has done what many African leaders hesitate to do. He's called out his peers, those who, at the first sign of national difficulty, pack their bags and run to France, to ask for help, to beg for support, to seek answers outside of Africa. And Kagame's words, as always, were direct, surgical, and impossible to ignore. Why, he asked, do we continue to seek salvation from those who once enslaved us? Why do African leaders keep flying to Paris when the answers should be found in Accra, in Bamako, in Addis Ababa, and in Ouagadougou? But Kagame didn't stop at criticism. He offered a solution, an example, a name, Captain Ibrahim, of Burkina Faso. A young, daring leader who has in Kagame's eyes done what many seasoned presidents have failed to do: say no, say enough. Say Africa must come first. Tonight we explore the meaning behind Kagame's words, why he believes African leaders must stop relying on France, and why he holds up Ibrahim as a symbol of modern African courage, because this is more than a diplomatic disagreement. This is about a continent deciding its future. This is about whether we remain trapped in the grip of neo-colonial dependence, or whether we rise to claim the sovereignty that was promised at independence but never fully delivered. It's a crossroads on one path: photo ops in Paris, development loans with strings, military bases that protect foreign interests, and leaders who serve two masters. On the other path, self-reliance, local investment, assertive diplomacy, and young Africans taking charge of their destinies with no apologies to the old order. That second path, the path of bold sovereignty, is the one Ibrahim is walking, and Kagame is urging others to follow, not necessarily through revolution, but through conviction, through prioritizing African people over Western applause, through building African institutions instead of outsourcing leadership. Now, some will say Kagame and are too harsh, that diplomacy requires balance, that partnerships with France and other former colonial powers are still necessary. But let's ask an honest question tonight. How long will we keep calling it partnership when the power balance has never been equal? How long will we keep calling it cooperation when one side extracts and the other side obeys? Africa is not weak. Africa is not incapable. Africa is rich in land, in people, in spirit, and in potential. But what Africa has lacked historically is leadership that acts boldly in the interest of the people, not in the comfort of foreign donors. Paul Kagame is sending a message, and he's not whispering. He's saying, the age of running to Paris must end. The age of dependency must be buried. The age of fearless African leadership, the kind we see emerging in Burkina Faso, must take root across this continent. Tonight, we dive deeper into this story. We examine the consequences, the controversy, and the clarity behind Kagame's statement. And we ask, is Africa finally ready to lead itself without crutches, without handlers, and without fear? I'm your presenter. Stay with us. This is Africa Rising.
Welcome to Talk of Africa 360, your source for insightful news, analysis, and thoughtful commentary. If you value informed perspectives and fact-based reporting, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an update. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is based on reliable public sources and credible online information. It is intended strictly for educational and analytical purposes. We do not promote or endorse political violence, hate speech, or any form of discrimination. Our goal is to inform, not to inflame. Thanks for being here. Let's stay informed together.
Good evening, Africa. Good evening, world. Tonight, we bring you a message that has reverberated across presidential palaces and foreign ministries. A message that stings with honesty, cuts through hypocrisy, and lays bare the urgent question of our time. Why are some African leaders still running to France? while others are building real independence from within. This powerful critique comes not from an outsider, not from a Western analyst, not from an internet activist, but from none other than President Paul Kagame of Rwanda, a leader known for his discipline, development record, and firm stance on African sovereignty. And this time, Kagame did not mince words. He called out his fellow African heads of state, those who, in moments of crisis, rushed to Paris instead of turning inward, relying on foreign approval instead of their people's power. And he didn't stop there. He offered an example, a rising figure that has captured the imagination of young Africans across the continent. Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. Kagame's message is clear. If you truly care about your people, your sovereignty, and your future, stop begging and start leading. A continent divided between the old and the new across Africa today, there are two currents pulling in opposite directions. One is the old, familiar path, led by presidents and prime ministers who remain tied to their former colonial masters, who still travel to Europe for permission, validation, or survival. They host foreign troops to keep peace, even as terrorism grows. They sign trade deals that benefit multinationals, not local farmers. They hoist flags of independence while their nations remain financially and militarily dependent. And then there is the new wave, a wave that says, no more. No more empty speeches. No more exploitation. No more foreign puppetry. At the center of this new movement stands Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young, fiery leader of Burkina Faso, who at just 34 years old, has done what many seasoned leaders fear. He's said no. No to foreign military bases. No to unfair mining contracts. No to the idea that Africa must always be someone else's responsibility. And this, according to Kagame, is the model African leaders should study. Not just his boldness, but his focus on self-reliance, accountability, and Pan-African solidarity. Kagame's critique, a wake-up call. At a recent African Union dialogue, Kagame reportedly stated, "We cannot keep going to Paris for solutions to African problems. We need to build the answers here, with our own minds, our own resources, and our own courage." This is not the first time Kagame has challenged the status quo. He has often spoken out against what he calls dependency culture, a pattern where African leaders externalize responsibility, waiting on aid, loans, or foreign troops instead of building internal capacity. But what makes this moment different is the growing divide across Africa itself. While countries like Rwanda, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Guinea take bold steps towards self-reliance, others still cling to old alliances with former colonial powers, especially France. And Kagame's frustration is clear. What have these decades of partnership brought us? If our leaders still need to fly to Europe to solve local issues, what exactly are we leading? It is a stinging indictment, not against France, but against ourselves. Why Ibrahim Traoré? Why now? Some may ask, why is Kagame pointing to Traoré, a leader with little experience, who came to power through a military transition? The answer is simple. Because leadership is not about age or how you got into power. It's about what you do when you have it. And Traoré, in Kagame's eyes and in the eyes of many Africans, has done what others talk about but never implement. He cut off the influence of France, despite enormous pressure. He renegotiated mining rights to ensure profits stay in Burkina Faso. He redirected military focus on defending local populations, not foreign assets. He invested in building schools, clinics, and agricultural programs, all without waiting on a foreign check. This is what Kagame meant by emulation, not necessarily copying the military style, but the substance. The courage to prioritize citizens over foreign interests. The discipline to refuse neo-colonial strings, even if it costs popularity on the global stage. The vision to build real institutions, not just headlines. The French connection, still haunting Africa? Let's address the elephant in the room. Many African countries, especially in West and Central Africa, still operate under the shadow of France's post-colonial influence. The CFA franc, controlled by the French treasury. The presence of French military bases. French firms dominating energy, telecom, agriculture, and transport sectors. Even education systems and media channels remain heavily Francophile. But Kagame's message is this: that era must end. And it will only end when African leaders have the dignity to stop running to Paris whenever trouble arises. Burkina Faso, under Traoré, has expelled French troops, shut down French media, and is working toward leaving the CFA currency zone. Whether you agree or not with his tactics, the principle is clear: reclaim national control. Kagame is urging others to do the same, not through noise, but through serious reforms. The youth are watching and choosing sides. Perhaps the most powerful part of this entire moment is this: the African youth are not blind. They see who is leading with courage and who is hiding behind protocol. They see who is investing in local education and who is building presidential palaces. They see who is taking risks to assert African dignity and who is playing it safe to remain in good standing with the West. And increasingly, they are choosing the Traoré model, not because he is perfect, not because he is a saint, one that no longer looks outward first, one that values sovereignty over handshakes, one that demands competence, not just charisma, one that refuses to be pitted, lectured, or bribed. This is not a message of isolationism. It is a message of self-respect. Kagame isn't saying cut off all ties. He's saying stop being beggars, be partners, or be independent. And in pointing to Traoré, he is saying, if Burkina Faso, a landlocked country facing terrorism and sanctions, can stand tall, what excuse do the rest of us have? Conclusion: who will listen? Tonight, Kagame's message is on the table. Will the leaders of Africa hear it? Will they put aside protocol, pride, and politics and reflect? Or will they dismiss it as rhetoric and continue the endless flights to Paris, Brussels, and Washington? Africa is at a crossroads. One road is well-worn, lined with dependency, foreign aid, and polite powerlessness. The other is uncertain, but full of possibility, ownership, and dignity. Kagame has spoken. Now the question remains: who among Africa's leaders will listen? Who will rise? Who will emulate? Not just Traoré, but the very spirit of African freedom. The youth are watching. The continent is stirring. The world is adjusting. Africa's future, once again, will be decided by those who have the courage not to run, but to lead. I'm your presenter, and this has been tonight's special report. Paul Kagame slams African leaders running to France for help, says they should emulate Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. Stay awake, stay bold, and above all, stay African.
As reactions continue to pour in from across the continent, one thing is clear: Africa is demanding respect, sovereignty, and accountability. Was this just a diplomatic misstep or a deeper sign of shifting global alliances? We'll be watching closely. If you found this story important, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real, unfiltered African news. This is Talk of Africa 360, telling the stories that matter.